the du'as which were in transliteration on the timetable, and that then it was like a moment in time which I recall. Like I thought to myself, why am I the only one who's actually fasting in this group? And then you've got Eid, and I started then that process started. It made me start thinking about Hinduism as well, this group as well, and that's as I said, I went to get the Quran. It wasn't the Quran. I was given Abdul Yusuf Ali Quran, which was actually thrown to me. And I thought, okay, my friend did say, the Mauritian Hindu friend did actually say, you're going to become one of them. I go, become what? I'm just curious to read what it says myself. But I was given my Quran, and then I was reading certain verses in Surah Ghashiyah, the believers would be given in paradise, and they really touched my heart. It did. And then I thought to myself, well, let's take a bit more of a closer look at Islam. And at that time, I was quite heavily dyslexic as well. But as I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me persevere in terms of actually keep myself and keep reading, etc. And then that's when I looked on comparisons between Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam as well. So I was looking up. The Muslims are saying that our language that we know. So the Quran is revealed in Arabic language, hasn't changed. It's a living language. So I then looked at Hinduism. Well, who do I know who actually knows the Vedics, the Sanskrit language? I never came across it, except there's some people, scholars, some priests may know it, but it's not a living language. It's just a bit like Latin, not very much of a living language, everyday language. And it was just that then went in Christianity. I looked at Aramaic, the language of Isa bin Maryam, Jesus, and I didn't know no one who knew Aramaic. And sometimes people ask me, "Am I saying Arabic?" When I make mention of Aramaic, I know Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke. Where is that Bible that Isa bin Maryam came with? It's not in Aramaic. So I started doing all these different comparisons from a young age. Perhaps that could be my stepping stone to my research.
Mashallah, I don't know whether the listeners can see you on some of the people that are watching on Facebook can. So mashallah, you have a full beard, mashallah, and you're wearing the fez, which is it from Morocco or is it from Turkey? Ottoman Empire, right? And it
it's like I'm actually Britain's first professionally qualified Muslim tour guide, and I always wanted to somehow dress up something. And I thought about, could I dress up like a Moorish type character? I thought not quite, in central London, I could actually, have the guts to actually do that. But then I thought, well, if I wear the fez hat, that signifies, the Ottomans, as well as it can be a marker in the crowd. So if people lose me in the crowd, people just look for the fez.
Yeah, because I mean, let's get on to your work. Really, you're a historian, and you sort of look the part with the fez hat and everything else. So, so, what made you interested in history, and what are you actually doing in sort of the mainstream tourist industry? Is it of interest to you, and why is it of interest to you?
Well, I mean, my interest in Muslim heritage of Britain started from my university days, and I had to choose obviously focus groups. So I chose what I thought was the early Muslim communities in Woking as well as Liverpool in the Victorian time. But then, that interest from there just kind of grew in terms of the different, references, and thought, okay, that's interesting to do. And I just kept on building that knowledge. And then it became a time, I was thinking to myself, well, what can I do with that knowledge? And, if I was to type in Google, about 10 years ago, Muslims in Britain, I was getting characters who were, with placards, marching and this, that, whatever, behead this person, behead that person. That was the representation of Muslims on YouTube about 10 years ago. And I thought to myself, well, no, I mean, I've got knowledge about, Muslim heritage within Britain. So let me actually make this now into workshops. So I started off with doing Victorians and Muslims, Vikings and Muslims, Tudors and Muslims, and a general timeline presentation. But then within a few months, I realized, hold on a minute, I could make this into an actual walking tour. And then from walking tour, it just became different types of tour. And I got myself professionally qualified as well. And but when we consider Muslim heritage from the Muslim community in general, we look abroad. We do. If we look at Europe, we look at Andalusia, Spain, modern day Spain, and as well as Turkey. But no one would imagine that we have so much heritage in Britain that goes back 1,300 years ago. And somebody, what I remember, somebody, it's been a few times, people have actually grabbed the London's map and they started questioning, all right, so what's in here, what's in there, and actually pastor did as well. So that shows us, in some ways, there is so much Muslim heritage that exists out there. But in comparison, if you like, mainstream heritage, I can do guided tours, and I don't mind doing them. But I know the Muslim community. That's why I started to speak about Georgian houses. Will that interest them? No. If I was just to tell them about Victorian Muslim role models, heroes, will that interest them? Yes, it would. And the achievements we've done as well since the loss of Andalus, because there is this notion that once we lost Andalus, that we've never contributed to anything in terms of scientific contribution. And even on the tours, I say to people, name me 5 scientific contributions that the Muslims have done, and very rarely can people even move beyond 1. But we have these contributions done within Britain as well. Except we go into the discussion of what happened.
It's fantastic. I mean, I've been looking at some of the stuff that you've been doing. You came second recently in one of the awards, only beaten by Ittihad, which is a huge organisation in comparison. How did that happen?
Quite remarkable.
You've started from new, and you're beating
Yes.
an organisation with, I think, tens of thousands of employees, and putting yourself right there on the map straight away with this Muslim history tours.
Yeah, that in fact was a world award about the best halal tour operator in the world. So that shows the reach that we have, and the people do enjoy the tours. People come on the tours. They say you get the best of both, like mainstream heritage as well as the Muslim heritage as well. But we like to say, well, Muslim heritage is British heritage as well. You can't separate the two, except we don't know about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's all intertwined.
Absolutely.
Totally. I mean, there's a number of discoveries that you've made, and that's come around. And I really want to touch on some of the ones that really I thought was really major. The first London mosque. There's a plaque being unveiled for that. Where was that, and how did that happen in the first place? And when was it?
That London's first mosque that we know that did exist was in 1895, and that was opened up by a South African individual who came over. His name was Haji Muhammad Doli, and he was the Hafiz of the Quran. So obviously, he had performed Hajj. He had a teacher where he learned Quran from as well. But he went first to Liverpool, where he put his son into the Sheikh Abdullah Quillim's college as well. But then he comes to London in 1894, and in 1895 he moves to Camden Town, where the British Muslim community at that time were bringing their children to him for Quran lessons. Like I said, it's basically in madrasa. Then it was said, well, why don't we just make this into a mosque? So that's how that mosque actually emerged.
Oh, wow. And for you, what has been the highlight of your discovery? What is the one thing that you would say that you really were stunned by and astounded by? Because I've got this list of several others.
I do regularly get asked about it. Can you name one thing that I've absolutely enjoyed in terms of discovery? To be honest, there's not just one thing; it's all of it. For example, for the site of what's believed to be London's first public Eid prayers in 1894. That was a discovery by cross-referencing 3 archives, the British Library archives, the Ottoman archives, as well as some local archives, and that took place in northeast Waltham Forest in a place called Chingford. But it's just totally fascinating. Even for me to find the door number of this mosque, London's first mosque, in 1895. I was down
the exciting moment for you.
Oh no, I was about to go. Because what happened was I was going through these big dusty rate books, and then I saw the door number with Haji Muhammad Doli's name, and I was like, yes, Allahu Akbar. Our fellow archivists, they're like looking for took the glasses, and then I said to them, would you mind? Could I use your prayer room just to do a short prayer? And they said, yeah, Mr. Taylor, by all means you can do it. So they're quite happy to actually facilitate that. It's never happened before, but they don't mind actually allowing it to happen. And they saw my total excitement of actually, I did the prayer of shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for thanking him for making me find the actual door number. And I visited the building as well. It does still exist. It's a house. It was a house mosque at that time, and the house does still exist.
Wow. And where's the house? Is it in Camden?
It's on a road called Albert Street.
Right.
Albert Street, which has also a Jewish museum now on the same street as well. It has its fair share of like blue plaques, etc. But for this building, I am trying to suggest to the owner, who's a retired gentleman, like let's perhaps get a plaque on this building. A bit hesitant he is, so it's a bit understandable. But what happened? Haji Muhammad Doli relocated this house mosque to another house mosque, so a house on Euston Road, where the Welcome Institute is. And there's going to be the Bloomsbury Festival at the end of this year, inshallah. I think we'll be out of lockdown by that time.
Yeah.
And, I'm speaking to the Welcome Institute, like, let's get a plaque now, at least on their building for 1899.
I mean, this history is so important to us, to be able to show that actually we were here long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Not just arrived on the boats yesterday or by
post-second
air
war.
anywhere. And actually, I think we have a duty to make sure that the future generations do understand this. And is that why you're involved in this, and that's why you have the passion and the drive to be pushing this forward?
Oh no, absolutely. I'm one of these like you could say historians that I can do academia, yes, but I like to, as I say, disseminate it to the public, including children as well, at their level. So I'm quite active on social media. Recently, we've gone onto TikTok and producing like short 1-minute videos, straight to the point. And the views on there we get is 100,000 as well. So
what is that on? Is that under the title Muslim History Tours?
Sorry, the TikTok account is under Halal Tourism Britain.
Okay, so if anybody wants to watch it, Halal Tourism Britain, fantastic.
Yeah, but we're on the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and that's all under Muslim History Tours.
Okay, excellent. That's absolutely fantastic. Finally, I just wanted to touch on a couple of fun things. What are the tours like, and what are the responses you get from the tours that you do? And is it eye-opening? Because I would love to come along, I've got to be honest with you, and I'd love to come and support some of the stuff that you're doing. It sounds fantastic, and we really need to link up with our heritage in this country in particular.
Yes. Everyone who comes on the tour, they're absolutely shocked and they're fascinated. They just, they want to obviously encourage others and suggest for others to come on it. And people are just so surprised what we actually have here. They've never heard about it before. But, we on the tours, we actually use visual aids to kind of contextualize where we are. We could use visual aids of like early Muslim travelers to Britain in the 1600s as well. Or it could be like, other visual aids where, the Muslims travel to buildings that used to exist there as well. But, these tours that we do, they can only be done by, as I say, a walking tour. But then after the walking tours, which I think I have about 25 walking tours now in different locations around Britain. Most of them are in London. That's because most tourists, mainstream tourists who come, they about 65% of them stay within London. So hence the reason why most of the tours are in London. But at the same time, I also do like a sightseeing tour bus as well. So like an open top bus, one tour during the daytime and a different one at night time. And that's when we get to see more of London. We cover a lot more ground, if you like, as well. But if you want a lot more content, then you have to go on the walking tours.
And how far do you have to actually walk on that tour?
Oh no, I mean different tours are different locations. For example, the most popular one is central London because it's a lot more touristic. That one, if you were to walk by, say, by bird, it's less than half a mile.
Wow.
But that typical tour, because we stop off at various locations, that could take us about 2 hours to 2.5 hours. But it also depends on the level of interaction as well. Sometimes it can take 3 hours.
Wow.
Because once we get going, and as I say, the guests are absolutely fascinated and they find different types of information, and they want to know more. So by all means, we do that. And even when we have international guests as well, for example, those who come from France, they then get a different perspective as well, an added bonus, if you like. They get a bit of an experience of French Muslim history as well, which is something they don't know about.
Sounds absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on our show this afternoon, and keep up the good work and keep the Muslim history tours going, and make sure that anybody who's listening, if you're ever in London, look it up and try and join them on their tours. I'm sure you'll find it fascinating and inspiring.
Just go to muslimhistorytours.com on the website.
Yeah. So it's muslimhistorytours.com website, and please go along if you're ever in London, and go and walk along and find out about our history, and our predecessors that have been in this country for over 100 years now.
So once we're out of lockdown.
Once we're out of lockdown, of course. Okay. So thank you very much. We're just waiting for our other guests. Finally, can I just ask, while we're waiting for our other guests, how many tours have you done and how many tours did you do last year, and how many people
okay, in terms of the number of people who are booking with us, they do tend to go up generally by 30% each year. So if I remember, for last year, I think we had about 2,300, and obviously, it just keeps building. We were hoping that this year, we would have actually broken that record as well. Obviously, unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, we won't be meeting, our actual target this year.
Fantastic. And do you think that there is room for expansion? Is there more sites that you'd like to do, other trips? Because you've got Woking not far away, you've got other sites that are really sort of...
We've got also, we have Oxford in development as well, but Woking and Brighton, that's something that we can do as well. But we are doing another, like a walking tour of Oxford as well. So that's quite, people find it, they're curious to find out, well, what exactly does exist in, this place of academia, if you like.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Abdul Malik Taylor. Really appreciate you coming on the show and telling us. And it's muslimhistorytours.com. Please join him after the lockdown. Plenty of exercise. Do everybody some good. The walking tour sounds fantastic, and the bus tour is even better, I think, because it's easier and you can.
Okay. Can I just actually make a quick announcement that anyone wants to learn about the story with regards to London's first mosque? If you go to our YouTube page at 3 p.m. today, we are going to have a presentation about the founder, Haji Muhammad Doli, and what happened to London's first mosque as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I've heard of that name. He obviously was an inspiration of that generation, really, and it's fantastic to actually look back at that history. I can just imagine the moment when you found that name there. It must have been really, really great. So thank you very much, Abdul Malik Taylor. Really appreciate you coming on the show. I hope the listeners enjoyed that.
Appreciate it.
Okay, now we're going to do the sort of next part of my show. And if you've got any comments, please, you can call in on 0116 482 2086, or you can send us a message on WhatsApp 07450 925084. Welcome, Haroon Sheikh. Are you on? Can you hear me, Haroon?
I can hear you. Assalamu alaikum, Zaf. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming on, Haroon. Now, we just wanted to talk a little bit back about the history of Leicester, and we wanted to take this opportunity really to talk to you, Haroon, in particular. How long have you lived in Leicester, Haroon, and how did you end up in Leicester?
Right, I was one of the lucky few that were born in Leicester, actually. But my family date back to about 1962.
Wow, yeah. Okay.
Which is probably a whole decade after yours,
Yes.
I know you've got a fascinating story, but I was actually fascinated by the previous guest. That is fantastic.
Yeah. We Haroon, we all need to get out there and do this walk instead of doing our jogs and everything else. Walk in London and do the tour would be great.
I want to do that tour.
Yeah, you want to do that tour.
I want to do that tour. Yeah. Yeah.
So
you're gonna take me, Zaf. You're gonna pay.
I'm gonna take you. I'm gonna take you. And everybody else in Leicester, I think, as well.
Good.
Listen, I wanted to ask you. We've only got 4 or 5 minutes left of this show.
Yeah.
Really. I just wanted to briefly touch. What was life like for your father and my father and all the other people in that generation? Because we have it relatively easier now, I think, because we've got halal meat shops, we've got the takeaways. My God, the whole of Eglinton Road is takeaway city, isn't it, really? And
yeah, absolutely.
And we have all the luxuries. So what was life like when you were growing up, in particular?
Oh, I mean, when I was growing up, it was very, very different. I mean, having a takeaway of any kind was a luxury that was afforded once every 3 or 4 months, maybe 5 months, maybe. It was one of those things on Eid, maybe, or around Eid, or as a special treat. I mean, our kids nowadays are so used to the whole sort of takeaway culture and having money spent. They don't appreciate the value of money like we did when we were children, I don't think. I mean, I know my dad was doing sort of 2 jobs consistently, continuously. 5 days a week, he was working at an engineering plant called Cannon and Stokes. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Yes. And then at the weekends, he was a market trader. Yeah. So it was 7 days a week continuous. But I'll give you an example. I can think of many examples, but I'll give you a single example of what life was like. Having spoken to my uncle, who's my dad's elder brother, who came here in 1962, when he arrived in the UK, he first moved to London. And within the first 6 months of him being in London, in this strange sort of big city, the capital of the empire, as it was back then, he fell ill. He ended up in hospital for 6 months. I think it was TB related.
Right.
Yeah. He doesn't know where he was. He doesn't know which hospital he was taken to. He was somewhere on the west side of London, because we had no relatives here at the time. And he said he spent 6 months in hospital, not knowing the language, not understanding the language, yeah, not knowing anything basically. I mean, he couldn't even understand exactly what was wrong with him. If you ask him today, what exactly was wrong with you, he said, I think it was something sort of TB related. It's quite, it was very, very different, different world. But also on the flip side, as far as our communities being close to each other is concerned, I've got a fantastic story. About 3 years ago, I met up with a guy who's a financial sort of advisor, broker type guy. I mean, I've never met him before, and I met up with him. We'd arranged to meet up, and he came and he goes, "You know, you're Sheikh. Your surname is Sheikh, and you're from Leicester." He goes, "You know, in 1969 or whatever," he goes, "you know, I was still a young lad, and I've got a job in Coventry, and I just arrived, and my uncle in London told me when you get to Coventry, get on a bus to Leicester and go to Duffield Street and go to number."
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna run out. Oh, never mind,
Sorry,
mind.
I just wanted to say, you know, we really should be celebrating people like your father, like my father, and everybody else in that generation, that era. There's so many characters that really contributed, and on their sacrifices, we're standing on their shoulders today.
Absolutely.
Huge sort of thanks to those people, our mums and dads, who really did the hard work to make Leicester the place it is today. And I want to do dua to them, and thank you very much. We're at the end of the show. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody.